Hi everyone, welcome to Module 1, Introduction to Climate Finance. As this is the first module of the Green Climate Fund Orientation course, let's start with the basics of climate finance. In this module, we will look at the definition of climate finance, the finance mechanisms under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC, and the global climate finance architecture. We will also introduce various climate finance mechanisms currently available to developing countries, such as the Global Environment Facility, Adaptation Fund, Loss and Damage Fund, and Green Climate Fund. Let's start with the general definition and a brief background of climate finance. While there is no universal definition of the term yet, the UNFCCC refers to climate finance as funding aimed at supporting climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts to combat climate change. This type of funding may come from local, national, and international levels, including public, private, and alternative sources. Climate change threatens lives and livelihoods. Climate finance plays a crucial role in helping countries, especially the most vulnerable ones, adapt to and mitigate its impacts. For climate mitigation, climate finance plays a pivotal role by enabling substantial investments crucial for the considerable reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Similarly, for adaptation, the allocation of ample climate finance is critical. It ensures that communities can make the necessary adjustments to counteract and mitigate the detrimental consequences of our evolving climate. Under the framework of international environmental agreements, such as the UNFCCC, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Agreement, there is an established principle whereby financially robust parties extend monetary support to financially constrained nations that are more susceptible to climate change. Climate finance is accessible via numerous avenues, including dedicated multilateral climate funds to tackle climate change. Several developed nations have initiated climate finance schemes or directed climate-related financial support through their established bilateral development aid organizations. Examples include the International Climate Initiative, IKI, funded by the German government to support climate and biodiversity projects globally, and Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative. Concurrently, some developing nations have established national funds to garner climate finance. Examples include the Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund and the Philippines People's Survival Fund. The forms of climate finance accessible through these mechanisms are diverse, ranging from grants and soft loans to financial guarantees and private equity investments. To support the allocation of climate finance, the UNFCCC Convention created a financial mechanism to channel funds to the developing countries that are party to it. This mechanism also extends its service to the agreements reached under the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. The Kyoto Protocol was an international treaty that committed its parties to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It was based on the scientific consensus that global warming is occurring and that human-made CO2 emissions are driving it. The protocol was adopted in Kyoto, Japan, and entered into force on February 16, 2005. The Kyoto Protocol has been succeeded by the Paris Agreement, adopted in 2015. This agreement involves commitments from both developed and developing countries to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, with efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Convention permits the management of the financial mechanism to be delegated to one or more established international institutions. Since the Convention was enacted in 1994, the Global Environment Facility, or GEF, has functioned as an operating entity of this mechanism. Furthermore, during the 16th Conference of the Parties, or COP16 to the UNFCCC in 2010, the Green Climate Fund, or GCF, was founded. The following year, it was appointed as an operating entity of the financial mechanism. The financial mechanism operates under the guidance of the COP, which is responsible for setting its policies, determining the program priorities, and establishing the criteria for funding eligibility. Beyond guiding the GEF and the GCF, the parties have also set up 2 dedicated funds, the Special Climate Change Fund, or or SCCF, and the Least Developed Countries Fund, or LDCF, both under the administration of the GEF. The Adaptation Fund, or AF, was also created as part of the Kyoto Protocol in 2001. During the Paris Climate Change Conference in 2015, it was decided that the GCF and GEF, alongside the SCCF and the LDCF, would be the mechanisms through which the Paris Agreement would be financially supported. The global climate finance architecture refers to the complex system of financial flows, mechanisms, funds, and institutions that provide funding for climate change mitigation and adaptation activities worldwide. This architecture is designed to mobilize and channel finance from developed to developing countries to assist them in implementing climate change mitigation and adaptation measures. Key components of the global climate finance architecture include: the UNFCCC's financial mechanism includes the GCF and the GEF, the main finance channels under the UNFCCC. The AF, established under the Kyoto Protocol, this fund supports concrete adaptation projects and programs in developing countries that are parties to the protocol. Bilateral funds. These are funds established by individual developed countries to assist developing countries in their climate change efforts. They often work in conjunction with multilateral efforts, but are managed independently by the donating country. Specialized funds. These include the SCCF and the LDCF, which address specific aspects of climate change, such as adaptation, technology transfer, and capacity building. Private sector mechanisms. These involve direct investment, private equity, insurance, and other financial products from the private sector to support climate-related projects. Carbon markets allow countries and companies to finance greenhouse gas emission reduction projects in exchange for carbon credits. Development banks. Multilateral development banks, such as the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, provide significant climate finance, often leveraging additional private sector capital. This evolving architecture is shaped by international climate negotiations, focused on enhancing effectiveness, increasing resources, and ensuring equitable funding access. It aims to balance finance between mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate impacts, while leveraging private sector funds due to insufficient public funds alone. Guided by UNFCCC principles and the Paris Agreement, it emphasizes financial support for developing countries to reduce emissions and adapt to climate change. Here is the diagram of the global climate finance architecture. As with any complex and evolving global mechanism, there are challenges regarding coordination, monitoring of the flow of climate finance, and inclusiveness. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated global action, innovative financial solutions, and a commitment to principles of equity and justice. Strengthening the global climate finance architecture involves enhancing the capacity of national and local institutions, improving access to finance for vulnerable countries, increasing the transparency and accountability of financial flows, and leveraging private sector investment. And we have seen some progress in that regard in the COP28 meeting in Dubai, where various international climate finance mechanisms announced their intention to coordinate their efforts better. Now, let's look at the details of these international climate finance mechanisms. To fulfill the financial requirements of climate action demands, specific funding streams or pathways through which financial resources for climate change mitigation and adaptation are provided through donations and contributions from countries. These windows are part of the broader architecture of climate finance and can be facilitated by various institutions and mechanisms on the global stage. Fulfilling the financial requirements of climate action necessitates a strategically crafted, data-driven approach underpinned by a comprehensive grasp of the obstacles encountered in accessing global climate finance opportunities. UNFCCC established a financial mechanism to provide financial resources to developing countries for activities, programs, and measures relating to climate change. The mechanism includes a number of special funds and operating entities. These include the GCF, the GEF, the AF, and the Loss and Damage Fund. These funds are intended to invest in projects and programs that mitigate climate change effects and promote adaptation to its impacts, particularly in developing countries. They support a wide range of projects and programs aimed at reducing emissions and adapting to the impacts of climate change. The administration of these funds is typically carried out by international organizations, which ensure that the investments align with broader climate goals, such as those set out in the Paris Agreement. Now let's look at the major multilateral climate funds in more detail. Starting from the Global Environment Facility, or GEF, is a multilateral financial mechanism that provides grants and concessional loans to support projects and programs in developing countries designed to produce global environmental benefits. The GEF was established on the eve of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit to help tackle our planet's most pressing environmental problems. GEF serves as a financial mechanism for a number of international environmental conventions and agreements, including the Convention on Biological Diversity for Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainable Use, UNFCCC, for projects related to climate change mitigation and adaptation, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification for projects to combat land degradation and desertification, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants for reducing and eliminating harmful pollutants, the Minamata Convention on Mercury for initiatives to reduce and eliminate mercury emissions and releases into the environment. The GF also supports the implementation of the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer through the Multilateral Fund for the Implementation of the Montreal Protocol in cooperation with other agencies. The GEF finances projects in various focal areas: biodiversity, protecting endangered species and habitats; climate change, promoting the transition to low-carbon development and resilience to climate change impacts; land degradation, preventing or reversing desertification and deforestation; international waters, protecting the marine and freshwater ecosystems; chemicals and waste, addressing the production, use, and disposal of hazardous substances; sustainable forest management, enhancing the sustainable management of forest ecosystems. GEF partners with 18 agencies, including United Nations agencies, multilateral development banks, and international NGOs, and works closely with 183 member countries to address global environmental issues. GEF provides funding to developing countries and countries with economies in transition to meet the objectives of the environmental conventions and agreements. It supports a wide range of projects, from small grants to large-scale development projects expected to impact the global environment significantly. Philippines is a member of a constituency comprised of the following countries: Cook Islands, Fiji, Indonesia, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, Niue, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Tuvalu, Vanuatu. For the Philippines, the National Economic and Development Authority is the political focal point of GEF, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources is the operational focal point. GEF has several functional arrangements that enable it to operate effectively as a financial mechanism for environmental initiatives. Here are some of the key components. GEF Council. The GEF Council functions as the main governing body between assembly meetings. The Council is composed of 32 appointed members, 14 from developed countries, 16 from developing countries, and 2 from economies in transition. It meets twice annually to develop, adopt, and evaluate the operational policies and programs for GEF-financed activities. Assembly. The GEF Assembly is the governing body of the GEF, in which representatives from all member countries participate. It meets every 4 years to review general policies, the operation of the GEF, and its membership, and to consider amendments to the instrument for the establishment of the restructured GEF. Secretariat. The GEF Secretariat, based in Washington, D.C., is responsible for the operation of the GEF. It ensures that the decisions of the GEF Assembly and Council are implemented, coordinates the development of policies and procedures, provides overall guidance to the GEF agencies, and ensures that the GEF operates efficiently. These arrangements enable the GEF to maintain its unique position as an independent financial entity that can address environmental issues on a global scale. The fund supports projects that benefit the global environment and promote sustainable livelihoods in developing countries. Since its inception, the GEF has become a key source of finance for projects that address critical environmental challenges worldwide, leveraging substantial co-financing from other sources and fostering public-private partnerships. Through its small grants program, the GEF supports community-led initiatives addressing global environmental issues and promoting sustainable livelihoods. The GEF continues to evolve, responding to the changing environmental priorities and the needs of the countries it serves, aiming to create lasting impacts through strategic investments and partnerships. The effectiveness of GEF projects is often enhanced through capacity development, technical assistance, and knowledge sharing to ensure that environmental benefits continue well beyond life. GEF funds a variety of project types and pathways, each designed to address different aspects of environmental challenges. Here are the main types of GEF projects and pathways. Full-sized projects. These are larger projects with significant impact potential. They usually require extensive preparation, and the funding typically exceeds $2 million. Medium-sized projects. These projects are streamlined to be more nimble and less costly, with funding capped at $2 million. Small grants programs. Administered by the United Nations Development Program, the SGP provides civil society organizations with direct access to grants to enable them to take action on global environmental and sustainable development issues. From the initial project idea to the start of implementation, it typically takes about 1 to 2 years for a GEF project to be fully approved and ready to implement. The timeline can be shorter for less complex projects or longer for more complex ones. Here are the projects supported by GEF. Enabling activities. These are capacity-building projects that assist countries in meeting their obligations under international environmental conventions. Examples include preparing national biodiversity strategies and action plans or national communications to the UNFCCC. Programmatic approaches. Programmatic approaches address environmental issues through coordinated, multi-project strategies rather than focusing on a single project. Expanding the impact of national projects. This pathway includes a series of smaller, interconnected projects that build on the successes of national projects and expand their impact. Integrated approach pilots. These are designed to address critical drivers of environmental degradation through a holistic and integrated approach across sectors and scales. Impact programs. These are large-scale programs that aim to deliver transformational change in priority areas aligned with the GEF's mission. Each project or program type follows a specific pathway from identification, preparation, endorsement approval, and implementation to evaluation. The process includes stakeholder consultations, securing co-financing, project design, monitoring, and reporting on outcomes. These projects and programs are implemented through the GEF's network of agencies and are closely aligned with national environmental strategies and plans. GEF allocates its resources through replenishment cycles, the System for Transparent Allocation of Resources, STAR, focal area priorities, integrated programs, and a rigorous project approval and co-financing process. This structured approach ensures that funds are used effectively to address global environmental challenges and support sustainable development in eligible countries. STAR is a framework GEF uses to allocate resources to recipient countries for biodiversity, climate change mitigation, and land degradation focal areas. The STAR allocation system is designed to provide a more objective and transparent basis for allocating resources, ensuring that funds are used efficiently and effectively to address global environmental challenges. Key features of the STAR system include performance-based allocations. STAR considers countries' potential to achieve global environmental benefits, as well as their past performance and capacity to use GEF funding effectively. Country ownership. The system supports country ownership by allowing recipient countries to choose how to invest their allocated funds across the focal areas, aligning with national environmental strategies and priorities. Predictability of funding. By providing indicative allocations, STAR allows countries to plan their environmental projects and programs with an understanding of the likely scale of available GEF funding. Transparent methodology. The system uses clear and agreed-upon criteria for determining allocations, which are regularly reviewed and updated to reflect the evolving nature of environmental challenges and the capacities of recipient countries. Flexibility. While it guides the allocation of funds, STAR also allows for flexibility in how countries can use their resources, including the possibility of transferring allocations between the focal areas under certain conditions. The STAR allocation system plays a critical role in the GEF's efforts to ensure that the resources it manages are directed toward the areas where they can have the maximum impact on the global environment. GEF agencies are the operational arms of the GEF. They are responsible for developing, implementing, and managing GEF projects. To date, there are 18 GEF agencies, including UN agencies such as UNDP, UNEP, and international financial institutions such as the World Bank and Asian Development Bank. Each agency brings expertise, experience, and regional knowledge to the table. They work closely with country stakeholders to ensure that projects are aligned with national environmental and development priorities. The GEF Council accredits the GEF agencies and must meet strict fiduciary standards. They also help countries meet global environmental treaties and achieve sustainable development goals. The GEF agencies collaborate with the GEF Secretariat, recipient countries, and other stakeholders to develop strategic projects and programs that align with GEF focal areas and strategies. They also play a key role in monitoring and evaluation, providing oversight to ensure that GEF-funded projects achieve their intended global environmental benefits. Next, let's take a closer look at the Adaptation Fund, or AF. The AF was established under the Kyoto Protocol of the UNFCCC and became fully operational in 2010. Its purpose is to finance concrete adaptation projects and programs in developing countries that are parties to the Kyoto Protocol and are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. While GEF funds projects addressing a wide range of environmental issues, the adaptation funds, on the other hand, focus exclusively on adaptation to climate change projects. The fund plays a crucial role in not only financing adaptation activities, but also in fostering innovation and learning in adaptation across various sectors and countries. It continues to evolve and respond to the needs of developing countries in the face of ongoing climate challenges. Originally, the Adaptation Fund derived its financial resources from a portion of the revenue generated by Clean Development Mechanism (CDM) projects under the Kyoto Protocol. Additionally, it is supported by contributions from governments and various other entities. The Adaptation Fund pioneered the direct access approach, allowing accredited national organizations to obtain and oversee funding directly, thus fostering national stewardship and enhancing local capabilities. The Adaptation Fund Board, committed to maintaining operational transparency and the ethical integrity of its decision-making, governs and oversees the fund. The fund finances projects that are in sync with the individual developmental agendas, strategies, and policies of the beneficiary nations, with a focus on addressing the specific needs of their most susceptible populations. Instead of loans, the fund allocates its support through grants, thereby preventing additional financial burden on the receiving nations. The Adaptation Fund advocates for innovative and adaptive solutions while promoting a learning culture by documenting and disseminating insights, lessons learned, and best practices from supported projects. While GEF funds projects addressing a wide range of environmental issues, the adaptation funds, on the other hand, focus exclusively on adaptation to climate change projects. The fund plays a crucial role in not only financing adaptation activities, but also in fostering innovation and learning in adaptation across various sectors and countries. It continues to evolve and respond to the needs of developing countries in the face of ongoing climate challenges. Originally, the Adaptation Fund derived its financial resources from a portion of the revenue generated by Clean Development Mechanism (CDM) projects under the Kyoto Protocol. Additionally, it is supported by contributions from governments and various other entities. The Adaptation Fund pioneered the direct access approach, allowing accredited national organizations to obtain and oversee funding directly, thus fostering national stewardship and enhancing local capabilities. The Adaptation Fund Board, committed to maintaining operational transparency and the ethical integrity of its decision-making, governs and oversees the fund. The fund finances projects that are in sync with the individual developmental agendas, strategies, and policies of the beneficiary nations, with a focus on addressing the specific needs of their most susceptible populations. Instead of loans, the fund allocates its support through grants, thereby preventing additional financial burden on the receiving nations. The Adaptation Fund advocates for innovative and adaptive solutions while promoting a learning culture by documenting and disseminating insights, lessons learned, and best practices from supported projects. The Adaptation Fund is distinctive for several reasons. Direct access. It was one of the first funds to pioneer the direct access modality, allowing eligible countries to directly access financial resources through their national implementing entities, bypassing the need for intermediaries. This empowers countries to own and manage adaptation projects from design through implementation while building local capacity. Innovative funding. Initially, the fund was mainly financed through a share of proceeds from the Clean Development Mechanism (CDM) project activities. The CDM allows emission reduction projects in developing countries to earn certified emission reduction credits, which can then be traded and sold. Country-driven projects. The projects and programs funded by the Adaptation Fund are meant to be fully aligned with the recipient country's national priorities, policies, and strategies. Multi-stakeholder involvement. The fund encourages the involvement of a wide range of stakeholders, including governments, non-governmental organizations, community groups, and others in the design and implementation of its funded projects. Transparent governance. The Adaptation Fund is supervised and managed by the Adaptation Fund Board, which has a transparent governance structure and ensures that a share of resources is allocated for vulnerable communities, including those in the least developed countries and small island developing states. Grants, not loans. The fund provides grants, not loans, meaning that recipient countries do not have to repay the funds they receive for their adaptation projects. The Loss and Damage Fund, announced during COP28 in Dubai, is the latest addition to the family of multilateral climate funds. The Loss and Damage Fund represents a major development in international climate finance aimed at assisting vulnerable nations to cope with the effects of climate change through grants, concessional loans, and other financial instruments. This includes the devastation caused by increasingly severe weather events, such as droughts, floods, and rising sea levels. The fund was a response to long-standing demands from developing countries for more support in dealing with the costs associated with climate-related disasters. Germany and the United Arab Emirates pledged $100 million each to kickstart the fund, signaling a significant commitment to supporting vulnerable nations. Other countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan, have also contributed to the fund. The establishment of the fund at COP28 follows years of negotiation. It reflects a growing international consensus on the need to provide financial resources to countries less responsible for climate change but disproportionately affected by its impacts. The fund's success will be measured by how quickly and effectively it can deliver resources to those in need. With projections indicating that climate-related damages in vulnerable countries could reach up to $580 billion by 2030, the initial pledges are seen as an important first step in building trust between developed and developing nations and ensuring that the Loss and Damage Fund becomes an effective tool for climate justice. The Green Climate Fund, or GCF, is a global fund established within the UNFCCC framework. It is an operating entity of the financial mechanism of the Convention with the mandate to assist developing countries in adaptation and mitigation practices to counter climate change. The GCF is a critical element of the global response to climate change. It aims to support a paradigm shift to low-emission and climate-resilient development in the context of sustainable development. It represents an important financial mechanism in the international effort to maintain global temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius, a key target of the Paris Agreement. GCF, established by 194 party nations of the UNFCCC during the climate negotiations in Cancun, Mexico in 2010, aims to assist developing countries in mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate change. With its headquarters in Songdo, Incheon, South Korea, the GCF is globally recognized as the principal fund dedicated exclusively to climate finance. The GCF aims to promote a transformative shift towards sustainable development in developing nations, emphasizing pathways that minimize emissions and enhance resilience to climate change. The fund manages a substantial investment portfolio of $13.5 billion when co-financing is accounted for, amounts to $51.9 billion. This financial backing enables the GCF to propel innovative climate solutions in over 120 countries. The GCF also provides a readiness support program, enhancing national capacities to develop and implement comprehensive, long-term climate strategies. In alignment with the financial mechanisms stipulated by the UNFCCC, the GCF supports the goals of the 2015 Paris Agreement, particularly its central aim to keep the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees Celsius. The GCF's investments cover a broad spectrum of sectors, including renewable energy, sustainable transport, forest management, and land use, focusing on projects that enhance resilience and contribute to emission reductions. Echoing the Adaptation Fund's approach, the GCF has implemented a direct access feature, which empowers countries to directly utilize funds and oversee projects through their own nationally accredited entities, fostering greater ownership and engagement in climate action initiatives. GCF funding types include the following: 1. Grants, non-repayable funds for specific projects or programs. 2. Concessional loans, low-interest loans for capital-intensive projects. 3. Equity investments, stakeholder investments in projects with shared financial returns. 4. Guarantees, financial backing to reduce investment risks. 5. Results-based financing, funds disbursed based on achieved results. 6. Project preparation facility, funding for project preparation activities. Blended finance, combining GCF funds with other financial sources to de-risk and attract investments. Here is a table showing the differences between the various climate finance mechanisms under UNFCCC. GCF provides the most funding support to developing countries to tackle climate change mitigation and adaptation issues through grants, loans, equity, and guarantees. The Adaptation Fund is focused on supporting climate change adaptation activities in vulnerable developing countries through grants only. In contrast, the GEF focuses on biodiversity, climate change, water resource management, and land degradation themes through grants and blended finance. As we conclude Module 1 on Introduction to Climate Finance, it's imperative to reflect on finance's pivotal role in our collective endeavor to address climate change. The journey through the fundamentals of climate finance has illuminated the intricate web of funding mechanisms, policies, and institutions designed to support mitigation and adaptation efforts across the globe. We've explored the diverse sources of climate finance, delving into public, private, bilateral, and multilateral channels, each with unique advantages and challenges. We will now look at the GCF and provide more details on how you can access the funding to support climate change work in the Philippines. Please don't forget to take the quiz to complete the module. Thank you very much.